Today's episode of Overdue Finds is brought to you by the EPL From Home Digital Book Club. Between Monday, April 20th and Sunday, May 17th, get instant access to the ebook and e-audiobook versions of The Wofield Poultry Collective by Canadian author Susan Juby. Visit epl.overdrive.com to get started. Hi, I'm Bryce Crittenden.
Hi, I'm Caroline Land, and welcome back to EPL's Overdue Finds.
Caroline, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Bryce. How are you?
Great. We're recording here in the afternoon, of course. We are recording from separate locations as usual here over the last few weeks. The sun is out, and you can kind of see that spring is actually here.
It is exciting. My temporary work from home space is right next to a window. So I've been enjoying seeing it was spring and then it was winter and now we're back to spring. So that's been nice to see.
Nice. So on our last episode, if everybody remembers, we were chatting with librarian Bethany Arsenault about all of the cool digital stuff that you can access from home right now during the quarantine. And we're going to continue that conversation today because really, Caroline, we just kind of scratched the surface last week, didn't we?
Exactly. And there was so much more that was maybe for a special audience that we wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I always love these episodes where obviously our listeners are adults, but I love these episodes where we kind of get to explore the kids side of and the family side of EPL's collections. And we have the perfect person to be joining us today to chat about some of those resources, and that is librarian Angela Liu. Angela, welcome to Overdue Finds. How are you?
Thanks, Bryce and Caroline. I'm happy to be here doing my first podcast recording.
It's a little unusual, we know, so we're really happy that you were willing to go with us on this remote recording experience.
Yeah, it doesn't feel too foreign because of all the sort of virtual meetings and things we've had from working from home over the last couple weeks anyway, so it doesn't feel too new at least.
That's a really good point. And one of the things I wanted to ask you about, you're a librarian at EPL, but in your own life, you play rugby.
I played rugby for 13 years and I actually just retired. This is kind of a sad, but also there's a recent connection to this story. I stopped playing a couple summers ago because I blew my shoulder out. And right before the libraries closed due to COVID in March, I was putting my jacket on my way to work. You might have seen me tweet about this. And I just dislocated my whole shoulder just putting my coat on. And I sat on the floor and cried and texted my boss and was like, this is exactly how this month is going right now. And it obviously has gotten worse in terms of how the pandemic has played out since then. But yeah, I haven't played in a couple years and I don't think I'll be able to. So that's kind of sad.
But you played for 13 years. How did you get into playing rugby?
I started playing in high school and it was a totally new sport. I had played basketball for a long time and hockey and stuff. So some people told me to sign up and I kind of just fell in love, and kind of the other sports dropped off along the way. And it was what kind of I kept doing after high school. I played in university at the U of A, and so much of the friendships I've maintained have come from rugby, and it really has shaped kind of who I am as a person. And I'm still on the board at my rugby club there, so it's been a really cool experience for me.
That's really neat.
Mm-hmm.
Would you ever consider getting into coaching?
I coached for about 5 years at my old high school when I was doing my undergrad, and it was really fun. I've thought about it a little bit, but I don't know that it's sustainable. It's really hard once you're working full time and are also kind of adulting, as we call it nowadays. So it's hard. I've thought about reffing and stuff too, but what I love most is kind of the actually getting to play. So I think I'll always be out to watch my friends and watch the kids play and stuff. It's really cute, the little guys when they play. But we'll see what the future holds.
So you mentioned working full-time. You are a librarian at EPL. Tell us more about the Lois Hole Library branch, which is the one you work at.
Sure. So I'm the youth services librarian at Lois Hole. It kind of was always my dream job. I've been in it for about a year now, and I totally love it. So I'm really happy to be talking about youth services stuff today. Lois Hole is our Collingwood locations. We're out in the West End. It's one of the bigger branches in terms of EPL locations. I think we're just behind Milner and White Mud in terms of like square footage. So it's a busy branch. There's lots and lots of families in that area. So we do lots of kids programming. There's a pretty big collection. I really love our children's area. We've got a fun train, and it's big, but it feels like very much a community, and the staff are great. So it's a great branch, and I definitely miss working out of the library with all the staff and the customers and the kids.
So we have to ask, because Caroline and I wouldn't be doing our jobs properly if we didn't. Most people probably know you, though, from some viral library videos that have been obviously very popular here over the last few weeks. And that involves you reading to a special furry four-legged library customer, right?
Yeah, so I've been reading to Hemi, and I think he's who I'm most excited to talk about on the podcast today. But Hemi's got a really cool kind of library story too. So Hemi is a retired working dog, and he was a sniffer dog who's done some work with EPL, and the manager at Loa's Hole, Mary Jane, who's a dog lover herself. She's got 2 senior labs in her household already, and she just had her eye on Hemi just from seeing him at work. And when he eventually retired, she kind of, I think, jokingly was like, I would love to have him. And eventually they called her and said, do you want this dog? So what's really funny about Hemi is he's a senior, so he's retired, but he's never really had the puppyhood that most pets have had, because he's always been a working dog. So he's kind of just living his best puppy life. And he's just so oblivious about rules and discipline, because he's never really kind of had the off-leash dog park, sleep in a bed experience. So he's actually really bad, and Mary Jane has lots of just countless stories of him stealing food off of counters and opening cabinets and eating what's in there, and just wrecking furniture and wrecking things in her car. So she's been bringing him to work a lot and keeping him in the vehicle, and then every time someone's on a break, he'll get walks and pets and snuggles. So it's been fun even when the library has been open, even though he's not been in the branch. But since we've been closed and there's not been concern with allergies by customers, and our allergic staff members haven't been around, he's been in the branch. And I kind of got the word one day that I could sort of plan some virtual stuff for our online programming. And I got to work one day and there was a bunch of stickies on my desk, and it just was like, ideas, story time with Hemi, and so it was kind of a joke. And we were scrambling that day to get some videos in before staff got sent home for isolation. And at the end of the day, we were like, let's do a couple stories with Hemi, like very much as a joke still. So he's laying on the floor, we're reading some books and recording them, and everyone's just kind of laughing, and I'm laughing while I'm doing it. And I send a bunch of videos to Marina in marketing, and I included the Hemi one, not thinking that they would at all make it through the marketing vetting of high quality videos that we were going to share. But she put it up the next day, and it's just been cute, that the reception that they've received. And I think people just appreciate that we didn't have a lot to work with that day, obviously, and kind of the genuineness of just reading to a dog and kind of laughing and it not being perfect. So it's been really fun, and I love that he's bringing joy. It feels like he's still doing some work even though he's retired now.
I've noticed on some of the comments for some of the other videos that we release, there's people asking about more Hemi videos. So yeah, don't worry. I believe there are going to be more videos with Hemi being released shortly. But if you guys for listeners who haven't seen those videos, click on our show notes. We will have a link to those videos. And Angela, it's funny that you mentioned about sending them to marketing and being worried that they weren't going to go through. I'll tell you a little behind the scenes secrets about marketing at EPL. Anything relating to dogs will always get the green light from us. We're always looking for dog content. We're huge dog fans in marketing.
That's funny. There's a pretty good Hemi blooper reel that's up on EPL's YouTube channel right now too. We tried to do a bunch of videos with no intention of Hemi in them. So these are like baby lap times and kind of songs and rhymes. And we're using stuffed animals in the branches in the videos because we obviously don't have a baby around. And Hemi will just kind of come out of nowhere behind a bookshelf, and you can see sort of the librarian like look over and see that he's coming. And then within a minute, he's stealing the teddy or the puppet out of our hands, and we had to reshoot them and wash Mary Jane has actually bought 2 new puppets for Lois Hole since the closure, because Hemi has somehow procured them from closets and things and destroyed them.
Hemi's obviously gotten that diva star kind of attitude right now, but he's definitely been he's definitely become a little local celebrity. So it's been awesome to see.
And international. He was highlighted in the Library Journal article about what libraries were doing during closure. So I think there's a worldwide audience for things like this. And we're going to talk a little bit later on about more of the resources that EPL is producing.
Absolutely. So before we get started today, let's chat about some of our recent overdue finds. Angela, your first time on the show, share with our listeners what you've been enjoying lately.
Yeah, so since we've been working from home, I've been trying to find kind of the perfect background music to work to that isn't too distracting. And I've really settled into Disney soundtracks on Hoopla. Hoopla's got a great collection. All the sort of popular movies are on there. I'm really into the Frozen and Frozen 2 soundtracks. I actually suggested for the Frozen soundtrack to be on the recent March Madness bracket, and I was pleased to see it go so far. I thought it could make it to the end.
It knocked out Beyonce, much to a lot of people's chagrin anyway. There was a lot of people who were not happy with that upset. One of those people is on the podcast right now, actually. So
yeah, but I'm really into the Disney soundtracks on Hoopla right now.
Awesome. So mostly the Frozen ones. Any other Disney soundtracks you're really into?
The Moana soundtrack is pretty good. Hoopla's also got these good Disney greatest hits volumes 1 and 2 that kind of give you a good mishmash of our classics, 90s and 2000s Lion Kings and stuff. So they're nice because they're familiar, so you're not too distracted by them, and it kind of gives an upbeat vibe to the working from home too.
Nice. I'm one of those people as well. I need music to be on in the background as I work. So no, I can definitely respect that pick for sure. Caroline, what have you been enjoying lately?
I've been using this time as an opportunity to stream some movies through the databases that EPL offers. And one of the ones that was new to me, I had never seen it before, was Creature from the Black Lagoon. And I highly recommend this movie. It's kind of like Jaws meets Alien times 50s monster movie, which it is, but it really has some neat storytelling pieces of it. The design of the creature, the titular creature from the lagoon, he's part fish, part human. You don't actually see him a lot. That you kind of see him swimming away a little bit. It's very reminiscent of the shark from Jaws, where it's more just about the anticipation. And there's something really creepy. The experience of swimming and something might brush your leg, and you try to tell yourself, oh, I'm sure that's just some seaweed. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. So it's a 1954 movie. It's 79 minutes long, so it's not a big commitment to get in and watch it. But the actors are really strong. Julie Adams, who is someone who I knew from her later recurring guest role on Murder, She Wrote. She is the female lead in Creature from the Black Lagoon. Her wardrobe is 50s stylish scientist on location. It's very enviable. The whole story, I just was glad that I had the opportunity to watch this movie for the first time.
That's cool. So did you watch that one on Canopy then?
That was on Hoopla.
Hoopla. Okay. Yeah. That's actually been one of the kind of interesting things about kind of the quarantine is you can only watch Netflix so much, and both Hoopla and Canopy actually have some great older movies that most people have probably seen the title of or the cover of before, but have never really sat down to watch it. So I'm a sucker for those kind of 1950s, 60s sci-fi / horror movies. So I might have to check that out then.
I really recommend it.
Nice. So I just finished watching season 1 of The Boys on Amazon Prime, which was incredible. Have any of you seen it yet?
No, I
No.
don't think I've heard of it.
So the series on Amazon Prime is actually based on the popular comic book series of the same name by Garth Ennis. So almost think of it as a real life R-rated version of The Incredibles or The Avengers. But if they were this, if these superheroes were run really by this evil corporation. So the heroes in this show, or the heroes, I say with air quotes, are called the Seven, and there's this group called the Boys, and what they're trying to do is expose the Seven for kind of the evil entity that it is. Of course, as I mentioned, it is based on a graphic novel collection, and the first graphic novel set of the series is now available for download on Hoopla. And the best part is that it's part of their bonus borrows collection. So you don't have to end up using any of your borrow limits for the month on it. So you can just borrow it and you still have all of your borrow credits for the entire month still there. So the series is really good on Amazon Prime. I watched that and then went back and read part of the graphic novel. So highly recommended both the TV show and the comic collection.
If you're looking for resources, if you really like comics and graphic novels, and you're willing to spend some of your Hoopla monthly credits on them, Hoopla has a really extensive comic collection. So take a look in there. They've got a ton of stuff. It's a really great resource for comics and graphic novels.
Now, Caroline, I have to ask you, included
Yes.
in that collection, is there some Babysitters Club?
Actually, I don't believe there is on
Oh.
Hoopla, but is there? Angela is doing some quick searching.
This was part
So
of my research. I don't know about Hoopla. It is on Overdrive, and I think there might be another resource that it's on.
This is like live librarian work right here.
it's tough because I know that there are always a lot of people waiting to read the books, the series that was started by Raina Telgemeier and is now being done by Gail Galligan. So I don't think it is in the Hoopla collection, but we do have some resources available through EPL.
Yeah. Well, once again, we will include the link to that in today's show notes. So, as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, today we're talking about all of the EPL resources that you can access from home. This time, we're chatting about kind of those resources for kids and families. So, we're going to start today with books. Angela, with the branches closed right now, obviously, what books do we have available for kids, and where can they find them?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Pretty much any type of kids book that you can get off of the shelf at our libraries, you can pretty much get online through one of our e-content platforms. So picture books, easy readers, concept books. We've already talked about comics and graphic novels. That includes kids versions of those. And we've got tons of chapter books and nonfiction stuff too. I took a look leading up to the podcast, and actually a lot of the most popular nonfiction kids titles right now are about viruses and pandemics and health and washing our hands and stuff. So it's a good way to kind of use the current circumstances to do literacy and some education through our digital resources also.
So obviously we've talked about Hoopla on this show a lot, but besides Hoopla and Overdrive, is there any other services that parents can access for kids for them to get some books?
Yeah, we've talked about Hoopla a lot. It's a great resource and a great way to get books without having to wait the same way you have to do in Overdrive. But another great resource we have for ebooks is called Freeding. Like the other vendors we've got, you have to download your own app for it, but once you log in with your library information, you're good to go with its collection. Freeding is nice because there are also no holds and no waits. So just like Hoopla, you're going to have immediate access to any titles that you're interested in. Freeding's got tons of easy readers, or also known as I Can Reads, that are really, really popular in our branches. So those will be leveled books for kids in elementary. They still have lots of pictures and will have a vocabulary that's tailored to that reading level. So those are great for practicing reading, learning to read Freeding also has lots of chapter books for young readers, including early chapter books as well as more advanced ones. So that's a great way if you've got a kid that's looking for a book right away and you don't want to wait for the holds list, or you've gone through a lot of the titles on Hoopla. Freeding is a great ebook resource as well.
So with some of those resources, obviously, parents are limited to how many borrows they can get. But I believe we have a service called, is it called Tumble? That really it's more of like through a web browser, and really you could read as many books as you want on that.
Yeah, Tumble Books is a really good resource for younger audiences, young readers. It includes a lot of read-alongs and picture books that instead of downloading, you kind of play in the browser and interact with. So that's a good way to do quick reads without using your downloads in Hoopla, for example, if you've got a big family that is going through lots of items. It also has language learning books. So there's nice ways to sort of substitute learning and story times by doing interactive things through the Tumble Books website. They've also got games and puzzles that are literacy based as well. So that's a great one for a younger audience, and the website is super kid friendly and easy to interact with.
So sometimes, especially these days, you might just need to throw on some music and have a dance party. We've probably all been there. I know I have. Does EPL offer any music options for kids?
Yeah, I kind of talked about my love for the Disney soundtracks earlier on Hoopla. Hoopla's kind of our best resource for kids' music, and the collection is vast. So a lot of the songs that we use in our baby lap time classes and sing, sign, laugh, and learn classes at EPL can be found in various albums on Hoopla. So popular kids musicians like Raffi has lots of albums on there. There's lots of Sesame Street, Peppa Pig, Pete the Cat. So kind of content that's really popular with young kids right now are available on Hoopla, and there's a really large collection of lullabies and rhymes and songs that parents can really incorporate into their day if that's what they're looking to do with younger kids also. And of course, if you want to follow along with someone doing some of those songs, we've got a lot of videos with EPL librarians available on EPL from home that are sing-alongs and sort of follow-along rhymes as well.
Caroline, on our last episode with Bethany, we talked about Capital City Records, and I just remembered actually that on Capital City Records, there's actually some children's music on there by a local artist by the name of Beppy, and Beppy actually has two albums on Capital City Records, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, and some of our listeners might remember Beppy, who has also done some programs and special classes and events at different library branches. So, Angela, when it comes to Storytime songs, do you have a favorite one that you love to use?
Oh, I have lots, and you will discover more as we expand our YouTube channel collection. But I just recorded a song called "These Are the Toes of My Baby" yesterday that we're gonna post soon. It goes to the tune of "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." And many of our Storytime songs, people will notice, always go to sort of the same three tunes, right? The More We Get Together, Frere Jacques, like London Bridge is Falling Down. So it's nice that that one is a different tune, and it's just a super cute kind of like baby song, and it's always stuck in my head. So you can find that recording on the YouTube channel, and at the end of it, I kind of just smile and say, that is my favorite song before I sign off.
You're like, as a librarian, that's my jam.
This sounds apocryphal, but I swear to you, this did really happen to me. When I was a youth services librarian, I remember being in our workroom and we were talking about an upcoming program, and we were trying to remember the tune of the song that we were going to do. And somebody said, I think it's Twinkle Twinkle. And someone else was like, no, 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 it's the alphabet song. And it took us a while before we realized that those are the same songs.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
So, Caroline, I have to ask you then, was there a favorite song that you like to perform?
Yeah, I love to do Elephants Have Wrinkles by Mike Whitla. It was a really fun song that kind of goes through the different parts of the body. There's some dancing, there's some elephant discourse around it, and it was so popular that if I didn't do it in a story time, kids would come up and say, excuse me, you forgot to do Elephants Have Wrinkles. So I had to make sure that I included it whenever I was doing it.
Nice. Angela, what about some audiobooks? Obviously, there's lots of audiobooks for adults, but what about for kids?
Yeah, we actually have a very large collection of audiobooks for kids too. And I think when we as adults think about audiobooks for kids, we think kids would not like audiobooks. That doesn't sound very fun, but those kind of come in different formats for different audiences. So I talked a little bit about read alouds. So we can imagine those as kind of having a book on your screen while having the audiobook playing. So we've got lots of resources that offer those read alouds. They're almost just like story times with a professional reader on audio. So Tumble Books got those. Hoopla actually has a lot also. So you can turn the page and have that voice reading rather than having someone holding the book. So there's lots of those. And then for older kids that read chapter books, just like the adult ones, there's some really great audiobooks, like the Harry Potters are on Overdrive. And right now they're no holds, no waits to do audiobooks or ebooks for Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. But for younger kids, the Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus series, Geronimo Stilton, Pete the Cat, those are all available as ebooks as well as read alouds.
Now, Bryce, have you read any of the Pigeon series of books?
I unfortunately haven't. I didn't realize it was a whole series.
Oh, there's a lot that the Pigeon wants to do.
So in addition to driving, the Pigeon also wants to do other stuff?
Yeah. Give me
a quick preview. What else does the Pigeon like to do?
Stay up late. Eat a hot dog. Yeah, there's the Pigeon wants to do a lot of things, and it's up to you, the reader, to help make sure that everything stays okay.
That he's just doing pigeon things and
exactly
not trying to kill people while getting behind a wheel, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
So we talk, of course, Angela, I know you listen to the show. We talk a lot about movies on the podcast. And especially on the last episode with Bethany, we chatted about a lot of the different streaming movies that are available from EPL. Can you, I guess, just remind listeners again about where they can find some great movies or TV shows for kids or even families that they can watch together?
Yeah, so to do a refresher, because I'm not watching lots of these other than Disney in my own time, I went into kind of our most popular movie databases, which, as you know, are Hoopla and Canopy, and it kind of blows my mind every time I go in there just how much stuff we have for kids. And it's not just the breadth, but the sort of super popular things that I think people would be surprised to find through the library is there. So on Hoopla, Magic School Bus seasons are on there. Inspector Gadget, which is very nostalgic for me as a 90s kid. Dinosaur Train. So lots of really popular content that is still being televised you can find for immediate access on Hoopla. And similarly with Canopy, if you just click Canopy Kids at the top, the collection is vast. So lots of awesome Storytime read-alouds, but also popular series like Arthur and Sesame Street. So it's nice to know with this familiar stuff like Arthur, what you're getting when you sit your kids down. It's stuff that's fun to watch as an adult too. Like I said, lots of nostalgia attached to some of those, but there's just so much stuff. So I encourage everyone to definitely check out those collections.
Yeah, and as Bethany actually mentioned in the last episode, I believe right now with Canopy Kids, basically you can watch as much of Canopy Kids as you want without having to use up any of your borrow limits for the month, which is obviously fantastic right now. Caroline and Angela, I have to mention, I was looking through Canopy Kids last night, and one of the things that caught my eye was that old Little Rascals shorts are included on Canopy Kids. So there's a good chance after we're done recording here, I might have to throw on some Little Rascals.
For work purposes.
For work, absolutely. So
Yeah.
I can then talk about it on the next episode. And every single time I hear or see the Little Rascals, of course, because we love our Simpsons references on this show, I can't help but think of the episode of The Simpsons where it was revealed that Mo the bartender used to be a member of the Little Rascals, and he was the tough kid named Smelly.
I was going to say, Bryce, all of the Don't Let the Pigeons are available as Storytime read-alouds on Canopy Kids too, so you could learn about the pigeon a bit too.
Wow, there we go. I got between Little Rascals and the Pigeon, I've got my viewing set up for the next little while.
I also love on Canopy Kids, they have some short films as well that might be cartoons or stories that are geared for a younger audience. And so if you're not ready to commit to like a full length feature, you can just kind of dip in and out. So material of various lengths. And something I love about both Canopy Kids and Hoopla Kids is they make it really easy to search. And so they have a really robust section that is just for kids stuff. So you can feel confident when you are looking through that material that it is going to be something that you can watch with your kids.
One other resource, too, I just want to give a quick shout out to is our NFB Campus. So that's, of course, the National Film Board of Canada. There's lots of great animated shorts on there, too. So one of my personal favorite ones, I've talked about this book on the show before, is The Hockey Sweater. So they have the sweater, obviously, which is based on that book. That classic novel is also available for kids to watch on there.
I love The Hockey Sweater. I have a Maurice Richard jersey, and when I was doing story times, I'd always bring the sweater, and then we'd read the book, and the kids would want to like put it on and stuff. It was pretty cute.
That's awesome. So are you a big Montreal Canadiens fan then?
Yeah, they're definitely my second to the Oilers.
Okay, nice.
Bryce, as you know, is a St. Louis Blues diehard.
I am, yeah. The Oilers are second in my heart, though, so the Blues will always be first. I know that doesn't make me a great Edmontonian, though.
But a fine medicine hatter.
That's right.
So with the schools closed, we know that a lot of kids are currently learning at home. How can EPL help them and their parents with their learning?
Yeah, so EPL has always had really fantastic resources for students and teachers and families, but obviously these have really come to the fore in recent weeks with this move to online learning for our students. So in addition to the ebooks, which are already in themselves really good resources, got a few sort of education focused resources that are based on the Alberta curriculum, which makes them really useful for this time. And I'll just talk about some of them quickly. BrainFuse is a great one for students. It's based on the Alberta curriculum and has resources for all grades, including elementary, junior high, and high school. And that content is tailored for students of that age group. So it's really nice. It has lessons and activities for individual topics and units. So if there's a particular area that somebody is working on or struggling with or like a refresher on, you can just skip right to those sections, do the flashcards, study games. And what's really cool about BrainFuse that separates it from a lot of our other e-resources, you can get help from a live tutor. So these are tutors not from EPL, but from BrainFuse, but they'll help with whatever specific section you're working on. If an older student is writing a paper or an essay, they have an editing program where you can upload what you've written and get feedback from a vetted essay editor. So it's really cool that you can get some live help, especially in this time where teachers are kind of swamped and working through a lot of things too. It's nice to get that extra support if it's needed. Another really great resource we have is called Celero. This is focused for students in high school. And as a youth services librarian, this is the resource that I always talked about when around the time of diploma exams, which I know is a little bit different right now, but people don't often know that the makers of Celero, which is the database we have, are the same makers of the Key Study Guide, which is a really popular physical resource that we have in branch. They're always all taken out when people are studying, but these are the same makers. So we're getting really good vetted content that's endorsed by the school board. They usually sell them in schools. So they provide really good lessons and activities for high school students. There's practice tests and assignments. And once you've logged in, it'll keep track of your assessments and your progress. So it's a nice way to see where you might need to spend a little extra time and what parts you can go through quickly. So Solero is great for our high school students, and there's some adult learning on there as well.
I like the idea of the possibility of a child listening to this episode, and especially this part two with the with the online learning resources, and just kind of being almost miffed at all the different databases that are available. I know if I was a kid, I'd be totally mad if that was the case.
Yeah, and for our younger kids who probably aren't spending as much time sort of doing independent studying, we talked about Tumble Books a little. That's a really great educational resource. We've also got a database called Tumble Maths. So that one focuses, as you can tell by its name, on numeracy and math skills. But what's really cool about it is instead of just kind of providing worksheets and math activities, it uses stories and actually fictional ebooks with characters and plots to develop math concepts. So I would encourage parents of younger kids to check that out. It kind of makes it a fun way to learn these key numeracy concepts to help build those skills without it being explicitly sitting down and doing math in its traditional sense. So that one's really great. And then we've got tons of other sort of educational resources like World Book, Early World of Learning. We've got National Geographic content. So even if you're not doing school specifically and you just want to sort of infuse your day with some educational stuff, we've got lots of great resources for students of all ages, really.
Nice. And on our last episode too, we talked a little bit about Creative Bug. So I imagine there's probably lots of really cool stuff on there for kids to learn about as well, right?
Yeah, I haven't looked at it extensively, but there's definitely lots of awesome stuff that kids and their families would be able to try out at home with just found materials and not have to worry too much about getting out and getting a million supplies or doing a sit-down lesson for a long time with someone.
Could you tell us about some of the special new things EPL has been doing to reach people at home? Of course, we touched a little bit at the very beginning of the episode on your amazing videos with Hemi the dog, but is there anything else that's been going on besides that?
Yeah, the librarians are working really hard behind the scenes to start to roll out as much as we can on a virtual platform. So we're looking at everything from things we can do with babies and parents to obviously school-age kids, but also adults and seniors. So some of the things that we're working on now include lots of building challenges and sort of STEAM-based things for school-age kids, including scavenger hunts they can do at home and ways they might share their learning and what they're doing with the library and the EPL community more broadly. We're working on lots of tutorials for the digital resources. We've talked about them a lot, but our makerspace and our digital initiative staff are working hard on making tutorials so that we've got visuals on how people can best access these from home. Lots of great blogs and lists are on the docket. And of course, we're rolling out lots of videos for babies and toddlers and kids so that they can sing along and enjoy a puppet show or listen to their favorite librarian read a story. So we're trying to get as creative as we can. It's sometimes a little tough working from home and not having that whole library collection with us, but everyone's working really hard, and it's good to see that people are really enjoying the content we've put out so far. We're also going to work on some live classes, live baby lap times, and see how that works for people at home. But if people have ideas, they can always send them through our social media team or through our chat and email customer service, because we just want to get creative and be able to serve people as best we can.
So with all these like additional like online programs and everything, have you been finding has it been like almost busier for yourself now than it was when the branches were open?
It's weird to not have customers in the library, right? Because that is such a big part of the job. So it is super weird doing a baby lap time in my house when there are no babies in the room. But definitely in the last few weeks, everyone's, I think, worked super hard, probably more so than normal to brainstorm and see what we can do with the resources that we have and rolling these out as quick as possible, because we know that people are looking for these things to do and looking for resources to access. So it has been a super, super busy time. But I think as this goes on and as we keep putting sort of consistent processes in place and getting things assigned to people, that it's going to feel a little bit more normal going forward here.
And as Bryce mentioned before, we'll have a link to the resources in our show notes. But to stay up to date on all of the latest stuff that EPL is developing, you can do that by visiting epl.ca. So we're coming to the end of today's episode. Bryce, before we get to our roundtable questions, can you let everyone know what you'll be chatting about on the next episode?
As everyone knows, we've recently wrapped up our March Madness tournament. In fact, last week, of course, we released a bonus episode where we kind of went over how we thought about what we thought about the results and kind of our takeaways from this year's tournament. So basically, the public voted and they crowned Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 to be the best of the 2010s. So on our next episode, we're going to be doing a deep dive into that movie to chat about its popularity with librarians and Harry Potter buffs Carol Ma and Cassidy Munro. So make sure you watch the movie before listening to that next episode. So if you don't have a physical copy of it, I do believe that the Harry Potter movies are actually on Netflix right now. So make sure you watch that and then listen to our next episode. Angela, I have to ask because I just assume this kind of comes with being a librarian. Are you a big Harry Potter fan?
I'm obsessed with Harry Potter.
Nice. So were you happy to see Deathly Hallows Part 2 win?
I didn't think it would. I mean, I like the books a lot more than I like the movies. I get where the people came from. Like, that was the pinnacle of the movie franchise, obviously, and a lot of things happen in that movie. I was surprised it took down Schitt's Creek. I really was.
Wow. Yeah, that's what we talked a little bit about, obviously, on our bonus episode. So if you haven't heard that, go back and give it a listen. So let's quickly do our roundtable questions before we wrap up today. Angela, I'm going to start with you. What was your favorite subject in elementary school?
I think it has to be gym. I just love sports. I love socializing. I love running around. So this is obviously a very hard time for me because I have lost all of the things that I love about gym, including the gym itself.
Nice. So you have to try and set up maybe a rope or something to climb in your house, maybe?
Yeah, but I will miss the friends.
Yeah. Caroline, how about you? What was young Caroline? What was your favorite class in elementary school?
I'm so cliche, Bryce. It was English. I loved doing novel studies. I loved creative writing. I got really into it. I'm kind of long-winded, so it was a good excuse to get those words out onto the page. Yeah, I really loved English.
Nice.
How about you?
For myself, no big shock. It was close to being a tie. So also, I was a really big gym fan, obviously. Loved playing floor hockey and dodgeball. Those are right up my alley, so love those. And you guys are actually going to find this to be a little funny. Did you guys also have like a library class in elementary school? It wasn't necessarily like a class, but there would be like a set time during the week where you went to the school library. That was like one of my favorite times of the whole week.
Of course, because you got to go to the library.
That's right. Yeah. I'd always check out really the same 5 books. It would be like a Calvin and Hobbes collection, a Peanuts collection. There was a book on UFOs that I loved, and I think a couple of Ripley's Believe It or Nots as well, but loved library. It was really fun.
So our next roundtable question, a lot of EPL's resources celebrate learning. Did you take any lessons as a kid? And if so, what were they? Angela?
I didn't take a lot of lessons as a kid. I was in bilingual school, so I did Mandarin bilingual from K to 12. And so we learned Mandarin for a lot of our day, and it was really hard, and I struggled through it. So I count those as lessons, but I'm really happy in looking back now as an adult that I did those. What I wish I did in terms of lessons was swimming, because I still can't swim. And I know people say that it's a life skill, but it really is not, because I'm not dead. But I do wish that I had the ability to swim if I needed to, which is not often, but a skill I don't have.
Interesting.
So Angela, I have to admit something since you came clean about it. I also cannot swim as well. Caroline's giving me this.
It is not a life skill.
No. So yeah, I cannot swim as well. I took swimming lessons a few times as a kid, and I think I got up to, I don't know, orange or red or something like that. And I never enjoyed it, and was never really a big fan of going to the pool. I was a weird kid. I preferred to stay indoors and play Nintendo, I guess. But so that was one. And then I remember, I think it was in maybe grade 3 or grade 4, I took violin lessons for a whole year, and I did not enjoy that either, and I was terrible at it.
Oh, wow. I'm still back on this swimming thing. But I guess I remember, like, I grew up on an island, so it was surrounded by water. Swimming was just something you did. So I guess if you don't grow up on an island, then it's a little different.
So Caroline, what type of lessons did you take as a kid?
I took a
Or did you take any?
yeah, I took a bunch of lessons. The one that stands out is piano. I took 3 years of piano, and then the piano teacher, who was a friend of the family, told my parents that she could no longer continue to teach me because she felt so bad about taking their money and I was not improving. So my parents, I did not know this at the time. I thought I had just like finally worn my parents down, with my, can I stop? Can I stop? And they were like, yes, you can stop. But it was actually because the teacher basically refused to continue teaching me.
That's so funny and sad at the same
Right?
time.
That's kind of my brand. So yeah, but maybe there are kids out there right now who are spending this time getting to practice the piano.
Well, let's hope that there's a lot of other honest piano teachers out there who maybe will spare some kids and their parents some money.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us today, Angela. Before we go, what would you like listeners to remember about EPL's online resources for kids?
I think we talked about lots of it, but I think the key thing here is there really is so much great stuff available for kids of all ages. There is something in our collection virtually for every kid. And like I said before, I'm always surprised when I open up those databases what is available, and I think our customers would be surprised too if they get a chance to check them out. So all of that information can be found on epl.ca, and of course, we're always happy to give you a hand through our online customer service or over the phone if you need.
Great. So we hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you haven't, we encourage you to subscribe so that you automatically get new episodes. You can also leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Please do. And even more importantly, tell a friend about the show, especially one who might not know about all of the great things that EPL offers for kids and families.
Yeah, and of course, we talked about a lot of resources today and some titles. So we are going to have a link to absolutely everything that we talked about in today's show notes. So just follow that link. And of course, as Caroline mentioned, we would love to hear from our listeners. So you can reach us on Facebook or on Twitter at epl.ca or email us at podcast@epl.ca. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.